All right, so get ready, because today we're going to dive deep on kobolds.
Oh, nice.
We're talking D&D's maybe most underestimated creatures. At least that's what it seems like from this source material.
Yeah.
It's going to really try to find out what makes these guys tick.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm excited for this one. I think kobolds, they're interesting because...
You think you know kobolds? Think again. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, exactly. People kind of write them off, right? they're just dungeon dressing. They're just kind of there.
Yeah.
But there's a reason why they've stuck around for so long.
Yeah.
And...
Okay. See, I'll be honest with you. My first encounter with a kobold usually involved, it usually involved them on the wrong end of my party's weapons.
Sure.
That was kind of my experience with kobolds. But I'm getting the feeling, reading this, there's more to them than meets the eye.
Yeah, I think so. It's one of those things where we're not just talking stats here today, right? This isn't just about, like, how much armor class a kobold has or what their, attack bonus is.
Right.
It's about what makes them interesting from a, like, cultural perspective, like a storytelling perspective.
Okay.
Like, what makes them tick. And I think that's what's interesting about them is that these creatures, they're small, they're not very powerful individually, but they're all about, like, work smarter, not harder. They're master strategists. They're cunning. And they prove that size isn't everything in a fight.
Okay.
Which I think is a cool thing.
So there's some depth here.
Yeah, there's some depth.
Okay. So where do we even start? I mean, like, unpacking the mighty kobold. Where do we begin?
I mean, I think a good place to start is with kind of their origins.
Okay.
Because even that is kind of shrouded in mystery. And the source material mentions this debate. Like, are kobolds, are they descended from dragons, or are they, like, tied to, like, the raw power of the elements themselves?
Wait, so hold on. They could be, like, elementals.
Well, it's a debate.
Okay.
It's like some people think that they're kind of like almost like living embodiments of, like, the earth or fire, right?
Right.
And that's a very cool concept, right?
It's super cool.
And it really kind of, I don't know, adds a whole other layer to how you view them. And so that the debate, it's very much alive according to the source material in D&D lore.
Yeah.
Which makes them even more interesting because we don't have a definitive answer.
Okay. So we've got this air of mystery right around, like, their creation, like how they came to be. But what about, like, I guess, how they've evolved? Have they always been, in D&D, have they always had this, like, cunning aspect to them? Or is that, like, a newer thing?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I think their portrayal has definitely gone through some shifts over the years.
Okay.
So, like, in earlier editions of D&D, they were often kind of relegated to the role of, like, simple-minded miners.
Yeah.
Like, they were just there to be, like, cannon fodder for adventurers.
Yeah.
Like, you're going through a dungeon, you're level 1, you got to kill some kobolds to level up.
Right.
That was kind of their thing. But more recent editions have really started to lean into this intelligence, this resourcefulness.
Okay.
Now they're depicted more as, master trap makers. Like, these guys are clever, they're strategic, and they use their environment to their advantage.
So, like, they went from 0 to hero. Or at least 0 to a lot more interesting. Like, as I almost feel bad for all the kobolds I killed in my early days of D&D now.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they put up a good fight.
I'm sure they did their best.
But I think this shift in how they're portrayed, it also reflects kind of a fascinating cultural significance within the game.
Okay.
Like, kobolds, they embody this idea that intelligence and teamwork can overcome even the most daunting physical limitations.
Okay, so it's like, it's more than just they're fun to play. It's like there's a message there.
There is. It's like even the smallest creature, if they work together, if they're smart about it, they can overcome some pretty big challenges. And I think that's reflected in their culture too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we see this in real world cultures too.
Right.
Where, people have had to overcome adversity through ingenuity, through collective effort.
Yeah.
And I think kobolds embody that in a really interesting way.
So it's like it's giving them a sense of history and a reason. It's not just they're small and they like to bite your ankles.
Right, exactly. It's more than just like a monster manual entry.
Right. We're moving beyond that. Okay.
Yeah. And speaking of interesting cultural aspects, have you gotten to the part about their names?
The names. Okay, yes. I will say some of these names are interesting.
They're unique.
They're unique. They're very unique. It's not your typical, like fantasy names.
Yeah.
Like you don't see a lot of, whatever these names are in your typical fantasy setting.
Right. And I think that's what's kind of charming about them.
Okay.
Because their names, they reflect their culture,
Okay.
right? It's all about like practicality, functionality.
Okay.
Not about like elegance or, whatever.
It's like they looked at all the elves and the dwarves with their fancy names, and they were just like, nah, we're going with Scrix.
Yeah. Scrix, it is.
Scrix.
But, I mean, there's something to that, though.
Yeah.
Because, like, you look at these names, it's all guttural sounds, short syllables. It's all about efficiency.
Yeah. Like it's meant to be shouted across a dungeon in the middle of a fight. Grix is over there. He's setting off another trap.
You don't want to be, like, tripping over a Yarkless when you're trying to warn your party about a trap.
Right. Exactly.
So it makes sense.
Well,
But here's the thing. Those seemingly random sounds, a lot of times, they have deeper meanings.
okay.
Like the source material talks about how a kobold's name might reflect their tribal role,
Right.
Or maybe it's their ancestral dragon. Like maybe there's a connection to the element that they're like attuned to.
Okay.
So it's not just a random collection of syllables. It's almost like their name is a microcosm of their entire story.
So Yarkless is actually way cooler than it sounds.
Potentially.
Okay. Awesome.
It's like a little window into their world. And speaking of variety, I mean, those unique names, they kind of tie into, there are a lot of different kobolds out there.
Okay.
It's not just like the cave-dwelling trap enthusiasts.
Right. So we've got the winged kobolds, the urds, right, from the source material.
Yeah, the urds.
Which I'm picturing like little tiny dragons.
Yeah.
Causing mischief.
A little bit of mischief.
Yeah.
Maybe a lot of mischief. And they bring a whole other dimension, literally, to kobold tactics.
Okay.
Because now you've got to worry about not just what's on the ground, but what's coming through the ceiling.
Oh, that's terrifying.
All right.
Swarms of kobolds coming from the ceiling. Nobody wants that. What about the dragon rock kobolds?
Yes.
Because those are in the source material as well. So we're talking mini dragons now.
They're getting there. They're not quite mini dragons,
Okay.
but they definitely lean more into that draconic heritage.
Okay.
They've got the features,
Yeah.
the source material mentions. They might even have like a natural affinity for magic.
Okay.
Like maybe even like sorceress abilities.
Whoa. So
There.
they're not just like brute force with craps. Now they're doing magic.
Maybe.
Okay.
It's one of those things where it's like, how much dragon blood are we talking?
Right.
Right. And that ties back into that whole origin debate.
Sure.
If some kobolds are more dragon touched than others,
Right.
what does that mean?
Okay.
But that's a deep dive for another day.
That's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
All right. So I got to ask, all this talk about like these kobold variants and the depth and all this other stuff, can you actually play as a kobold?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, the source material even gives you some helpful tips.
Okay.
If you wanted to create a kobold character, and it's not just about like picking the right stats or spells.
Right.
It's about really leaning into what makes a kobold a kobold.
Okay. So what are we talking? If you want to play a kobold, what kind of class? What sings to you? What's going to be fun?
Well, I mean, given their natural affinity for like cunning and strategy,
Yep.
rogues are a popular choice, or sorcerers.
Okay.
Right. But it goes beyond just the class.
Oh, I bet.
It's about like, how do you embody that scrappy underdog energy?
Okay.
Right. Your kobold character is probably not going to be the strongest one at the table. They're not going to be the toughest.
Right.
But they might be the cleverest.
Okay.
They might be the most resourceful.
So how do you lean into that? Like give me an example. Like if I'm going to play this kobold rogue, what are some things I should keep in mind?
Well, first and foremost, you got to embrace the teamwork aspect.
Okay.
Kobolds, they're all about the group, the clan,
Yeah.
the hive mind.
Right.
So think about how your character interacts with their fellow party members. They're not a lone wolf.
Right.
They're a team player.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be like off in the corner by themselves brooding.
No. They're going to be in the middle of it, coming up with plans.
Yeah. Okay.
Working with their allies. So think about, like, how can your character's abilities complement the rest of the party?
Okay.
How can they contribute to a shared strategy?
Right.
And then you've got that whole, like, resourcefulness thing.
Okay.
They're masters at squeezing every advantage out of their environment. So maybe your kobold rogue, they're not just good at setting traps, but they can turn anything into a trap.
Okay.
Like, forget the spiked pit.
It's so basic.
It's level 1 stuff, right?
Yeah.
We're talking like weaponized beehives.
Oh my God.
Collapsing tunnels that flood with water.
Okay.
Illusions that play on an adventurer's greed. Like, get creative with it.
Genius.
Yeah.
Genius. Never thought about using a beehive as a weapon, but tracks. Makes sense.
Right. It's all about that ingenuity. And then don't forget that connection to dragons.
Oh.
Even if you're not playing a dragon rot kobold, maybe your character, they carry like a little trinket
Okay.
from an ancestral dragon.
Uh-huh.
Or maybe they whisper little prayers to a draconic deity for guidance. Just a little flavor,
Okay.
a little bit of depth.
Yeah, like we keep peeling back these layers to the kobold. It's like an onion. We thought we had them figured out. Then there's like another layer. I'm going from like kobolds are kind of cute to like kobolds are actually kind of cool. It's like over the course of this conversation, I'm coming around on kobolds.
And that's the thing. They really are, they're a testament to this idea that even like the smallest, most overlooked creatures in D&D, they can have these really compelling stories if you just look for them.
If you know where to look at that. We went from underestimating kobolds to like really kind of uncovering their hidden depths. It's amazing. Who knew? Makes you wonder like what other secrets are out there.
Oh, I'm sure there's tons, right? That's the beauty of this game. There's always more to discover, always another layer to peel back.
Yeah.
I mean, even with the kobolds, like we were surprised.
Totally. All right. Well, I'm gonna go draw some new dungeons because I got to work some kobolds in there now.
Yeah, there you go.
Thanks for opening my eyes to the kobold possibilities.
Anytime. Glad we could shed some light on these little guys.
All right. Until next time, everybody. May your dice rolls be ever in your favor, and watch out for those cleverly disguised kobold traps.